Rachel Thompson thought she knew what evil looked like. After 17 years as an emergency room nurse, she'd treated rapists, murderers, and child abusers. She'd seen the worst humanity had to offer, wheeled through those hospital doors on stretchers, handcuffed to gurneys, bleeding and broken. She was wrong. Evil didn't always come with visible wounds or police escorts. Sometimes evil lived in your house, slept in your bed, and called you honey while destroying everything you held sacred. Sometimes evil wore the face of the man you trusted with your life and your daughter's future. Rachel's phone buzzed as she finished her third consecutive 12-hour shift at Memorial Hospital. A text from Michael. "Working late again? Emma's already asleep. Don't worry about us." The message that once brought comfort now chills her blood when she remembers it. Because by the time she discovered the truth, Michael Harrison had already stolen 4 years of her daughter's life, and there was no going back. The drive home through suburbia felt longer than usual. Their 2-story colonial house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, its windows glowing warmly in the darkness. Rachel had worked extra shifts for 4 years to afford this place, a sanctuary where her daughter could finish high school and prepare for college. As she unlocked the front door, the house felt unusually still. Michael's car was in the driveway, but no sounds came from the living room where he usually watched late-night television. She climbed the stairs, noting that Emma's bedroom door was closed. Her 21-year-old daughter had become increasingly withdrawn over the past year, but Rachel attributed it to the stress of community college and part-time work. Rachel found Michael in their bedroom, already under the covers. He stirred as she entered, his dark hair tousled against the pillow. "Long day?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep. "The longest," Rachel replied, beginning to undress. "That pile-up on Interstate 75 kept us busy. 4 victims, all critical." Michael made sympathetic sounds, but something in his tone felt distant. Rachel dismissed the thought. She was probably just exhausted. The first sign that something was deeply wrong came 3 weeks later during Rachel's rare Saturday off. She was folding laundry when she heard retching from the upstairs bathroom. Emma had been sick for several mornings recently, claiming it was just stress from school. Rachel knocked gently on the bathroom door. "Honey, are you okay?" "Just my stomach," Emma called back, her voice strained. "I think I ate something bad." When Emma emerged, her face was pale and drawn. She had her father's green eyes and Rachel's determined jawline, but lately those eyes seemed haunted. Rachel reached out to feel her forehead, but Emma flinched away, a reaction that had become disturbingly common. "Maybe you should see Dr. Brennan," Rachel suggested. "This has been going on for weeks." "I'm fine, Mom." "Really?" Emma's smile was forced. "Just need to be more careful what I eat." Michael appeared at the top of the stairs dressed for his weekend golf game. "Everything okay up here?" "Emma's been sick again," Rachel explained. Michael's expression showed concern, but something flickered in his eyes, so briefly that Rachel almost missed it. Poor kid. Maybe she needs to take a break from that job at the bookstore. Too much stress. Emma shot him a look that Rachel couldn't interpret, then hurried past them both to her room. Over the following months, Rachel began noticing other changes. Emma, once outgoing and social, rarely left the house except for work and school. She'd stopped talking about her future plans, no longer mentioning the physical therapy program she'd been excited to start. Most troubling, she seemed terrified whenever Michael was around, making excuses to leave rooms when he entered. Rachel tried to convince herself it was normal young adult behavior, rebellion, finding independence. But her nursing instincts, honed by years of recognizing signs of trauma and abuse, whispered that something was terribly wrong. The truth began to unravel on a Tuesday evening in November. Rachel had come home early from her shift due to a staffing error, parking in the street instead of the driveway to avoid blocking Michael's car. As she approached the house, she heard raised voices from inside. "Can't keep doing this," Emma was saying, her voice desperate. "You don't have a choice." Michael's voice was cold, authoritative. "We've been through this." Rachel hesitated at the front door, key in hand. Something in Michael's tone made her blood run cold. "Please," Emma was crying now. "I can't go through it again. The last time nearly killed me. Your mother can never know. You understand that, right? If she finds out, it destroys everything. For all of us." Rachel's hands began to shake. She carefully turned the key and slipped inside, moving silently toward the living room. What she saw there would haunt her forever. Michael stood over Emma, who was curled on the couch, sobbing. His hand was on her shoulder, but there was nothing paternal about the gesture. It was possessive, threatening. "Michael?" Rachel's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Both of them froze. Michael's hand dropped immediately, and his expression transformed into one of concerned stepfather. "Rachel, you're home early. Emma was just upset about something at school." But Emma's face told a different story. The terror in her daughter's eyes was unmistakable, and in that moment, Rachel knew. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The withdrawal, the mysterious illnesses, the fear. "Emma," Rachel said gently, moving toward her daughter. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "Nothing, Mom," Emma whispered, but her eyes were pleading. Michael stepped between them. "She's just being dramatic. You know how girls her age can be." Something inside Rachel snapped. "Get away from her!" "Rachel, you're overreacting. Get away from my daughter." The house fell silent except for Emma's quiet sobs. Michael's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something dark and ugly beneath. "Fine," he said, raising his hands in mock surrender. "I was just trying to help." He walked toward the stairs, pausing to look back. "Emma, think carefully about what you say. Remember what we discussed." After he disappeared upstairs, Rachel knelt beside her daughter. "Emma, please, tell me what's happening." For a long moment, Emma said nothing. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, she began to speak. The story came out in fragments, each revelation more horrifying than the last.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
It had started when Emma was 17, shortly after Michael moved in. Small things at first, inappropriate comments, lingering touches, walking in on her changing clothes. Rachel had been working so many extra shifts to pay for the house, often leaving early in the morning and returning late at night. Michael had been patient, methodical. He'd gained Emma's trust, then exploited it. The first assault happened when Rachel was working a double shift during a COVID outbreak at the hospital. Michael had threatened to leave if Emma told anyone, claiming it would destroy Rachel financially and emotionally. "He said you loved him so much that finding out would kill you," Emma sobbed. "He said no one would believe me anyway, that everyone would think I was lying because I was jealous of your new relationship." Rachel felt physically sick. "The morning sickness," she said quietly. Emma nodded, unable to meet her mother's eyes. "4 times, Mom. 4 times I had to get rid of them. Michael drove me to clinics in other cities, paid cash, made me use fake names. The last one," her voice broke. "There were complications. The doctor said I might never be able to have children." Rachel's world collapsed. Every motherly instinct screamed that she had failed her daughter in the most fundamental way. While she'd been saving other people's lives, her own child was being destroyed under her own roof. "Why didn't you tell me?" Rachel whispered. "I tried so many times, but he was always there, always watching. And after a while, I started to believe him, that it was my fault somehow, that I had led him on." Rachel pulled her daughter into her arms, holding her as she hadn't since Emma was small. "None of this is your fault. None of it. I'm so sorry I wasn't here to protect you." They sat together for hours, Emma finally releasing years of buried trauma. She told her mother about the photographs Michael had taken, the threats he'd made, the elaborate system of manipulation he'd used to keep her silent. "Where is he now?" Rachel asked finally. "Upstairs. He probably thinks you believed his story about school drama." Rachel felt something cold and hard crystallizing in her chest. "Pack a bag. We're leaving tonight." "Mom, we can't. He'll find us. He has pictures, videos. He said he'd put them online if I ever tried to leave." "Let me worry about Michael." While Emma packed, Rachel searched Michael's belongings with the methodical precision of someone accustomed to life or death situations. In his office, she found a laptop hidden behind legal textbooks. Michael worked as a paralegal for a mid-sized firm downtown. The computer was password protected, but Rachel knew Michael well enough to guess his passwords. What she found made her stomach turn. Hundreds of photographs and videos of Emma, some dating back to when she was still in high school. Chat logs with other men, discussing ways to manipulate and control young women. Most damning of all, detailed records of the 4 pregnancies and abortions, complete with forged medical documents. But there was more. Michael had been planning something new. Rachel found recent searches for fertility drugs and pregnancy tests, messages to someone named Dr. Foster about ensuring the next pregnancy goes to term. The implication was clear. Michael intended to get Emma pregnant again, but this time he wouldn't allow her to terminate. Rachel's hands shook as she copied the files to a flash drive. This was evidence enough to put Michael away for decades, but something inside her had broken beyond repair. The rage that filled her was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. She heard footsteps on the stairs. Michael was coming down. Michael found Rachel in his office, the laptop open in front of her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then his carefully constructed facade finally crumbled completely. "I see you've been snooping," he said calmly. "You're a monster." Rachel's voice was deadly quiet. Michael shrugged. "I'm a man with needs." Emma understood that eventually. "She's my daughter. She's 21 years old, hardly a child. She was 17 when you started raping her." Michael's expression didn't change. "Such an ugly word. I prefer to think of it as a relationship that evolved naturally." Rachel stood slowly, her fingers gripping the edge of the desk. "Get out of my house." "I don't think so." Michael stepped closer. "You see, Rachel, this is my house too, legally speaking. And if you try to cause trouble, everyone will see those lovely photos of your daughter, including her future employers, her friends, anyone who might matter to her." "You're going to prison," Michael laughed. "Am I? With what evidence? Emma's word against mine? A traumatized girl with a history of mental health issues, and yes, I've been documenting those as well. Depression, anxiety, possible delusional behavior. Who do you think a jury will believe?" Rachel realized with growing horror that he was right. Michael had been planning this for years, creating alibis, documenting Emma's emotional distress while hiding its true cause. He'd positioned himself as the concerned stepfather of a troubled girl. "Besides," Michael continued, "I have security cameras throughout the house, motion activated with cloud backup. If anything happens to me, the footage automatically gets sent to several recipients, including the police and Emma's college." Rachel's heart sank. She looked around the office, noticing for the first time the small cameras mounted discreetly in the corners. "So here's what's going to happen," Michael said. "We're going to continue being a happy family. Emma will learn to be more cooperative, and you'll keep working your shifts and staying out of business that doesn't concern you. And if I refuse," Michael smiled coldly, "then I release everything. Emma's life is ruined. You lose your nursing license for failing to report suspected abuse, and I disappear with a very substantial nest egg I've been building from your joint accounts." Rachel felt trapped, just as Emma had been. Michael had thought of everything. That night, Rachel lay awake while Michael slept beside her, planning. Her nursing background had taught her about medications, about drugs that could incapacitate or kill. But she also knew about digital security from hospital systems training. Over the next 3 days, Rachel researched everything she could about Michael's surveillance system. She discovered that the cameras recorded to a local server before uploading to the cloud, and that there was a brief window during the daily backup process when the system was vulnerable. She also made a disturbing discovery. Michael's Dr. Foster wasn't a medical professional at all, but a man with a history of sexual assault charges who provided illegal medical services. The fertility drugs Michael had ordered weren't for legitimate treatment. They were date rape drugs designed to increase the chances of pregnancy. Rachel realized Michael's plan was even more sinister than she'd imagined. He intended to drug and assault Emma repeatedly until she became pregnant, then prevent her from getting another abortion by claiming paternal rights. The final straw came when Rachel found Michael's journal, hidden in a safe behind a false wall in the basement. The entries detailed not just his abuse of Emma, but his plans to continue the pattern with future victims. He'd been researching Rachel's nursing colleagues who had teenage daughters. Rachel closed the journal and made her decision. On Saturday morning, Michael left for his weekly golf game. Rachel waited until his car disappeared around the corner, then activated a plan she'd been refining for days. First, she accessed Michael's security system during the backup window and uploaded a virus she'd obtained from a hospital IT specialist friend, ostensibly to protect against a new type of malware targeting medical facilities. The virus would corrupt the video files while leaving the system appearing to function normally. Next, she called Emma down from her room. Her daughter looked terrible. She'd barely eaten or slept since their conversation. "I need you to do something for me," Rachel said. "I need you to go to your Aunt Patricia's house and stay there until I call you." "Mom, what are you planning?" "I'm going to fix this." Emma's eyes widened with understanding. "Mom, no. We can go to the police. We have the evidence now." "The evidence proves he's a predator, but it doesn't prove the system will protect you. How many women have you seen come through the ER after reporting rape? How many of their attackers actually face consequences?" Emma couldn't argue with that. They'd both seen too much. "Promise me you'll go to Patricia's. Promise me you won't come back until I call." Reluctantly, Emma agreed. Rachel watched her daughter drive away, then went to Michael's gun safe. She knew the combination, his birthday predictably. Inside was a .38 revolver Michael had bought for home protection. Rachel sat in the living room and waited. Michael returned home at 3 p.m., earlier than usual. He seemed agitated, checking his phone repeatedly as he entered the house. "Where's Emma?" he asked immediately. "Out with friends," Rachel lied. Michael's eyes narrowed. "She doesn't have friends anymore. Where is she really?" "Somewhere you'll never hurt her again." Michael's expression darkened. He pulled out his phone and began typing rapidly. "I'm activating the insurance policy. Every photo, every video, every compromising piece of evidence about your precious daughter is about to become public." "Go ahead." Michael looked up, surprised by her calm tone. "You see, Michael, I've learned a few things about technology recently. Your surveillance system has been compromised. Your cloud backups are corrupted. And your precious evidence? It's gone." Michael's finger hovered over his phone screen. After a moment, he smiled. "You're bluffing?" "Am I?" He pressed send, then waited. His phone chimed with an error message. He tried again with the same result. His face went pale as he realized his digital leverage had evaporated. "You bitch," he snarled, dropping all pretense. "Do you have any idea how much money I've invested in this? How many years of careful planning?" "I know exactly what you've invested," Rachel said, standing slowly. The gun was hidden behind a throw pillow on the couch. 4 years of raping my daughter, 4 forced abortions, her fertility, her ability to trust, her sense of safety in the world. Michael began backing toward the door. "You can't prove any of that now." "I don't need to prove it to a court," Rachel said, retrieving the revolver. "I only needed to prove it to myself." Michael's eyes fixed on the gun. "Rachel, think about what you're doing. You're a healer. You took an oath to do no harm." "My first oath was to my daughter. I failed her for 4 years. I won't fail her again." "You're going to prison for the rest of your life," Michael said desperately. "Is that what Emma wants? To lose her mother too?" Rachel considered this. Michael was right. Killing him would likely mean life in prison, but letting him live meant he would find another victim, another family to destroy. "Maybe," she said finally, "but at least she'll be safe." Michael lunged toward her, perhaps thinking he could overpower her before she could fire. But Rachel had spent 17 years in emergency medicine, making life and death decisions in split seconds. Her reflexes were sharp, her hands steady. The first shot hit Michael in the chest, spinning him around. He stumbled but didn't fall. The second shot dropped him to his knees. The third, fourth, fifth, and sixth shots were for Emma. For every violation, every threat, every moment of terror her daughter had endured. Michael lay still on the hardwood floor of their living room, his blood pooling beneath him. Rachel set the gun on the coffee table and picked up the phone. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report a shooting, Rachel said calmly. I just killed my husband. The trial of Rachel Thompson became a media sensation. Prosecutors charged her with second-degree murder, arguing that the killing was premeditated. The defense countered with a necessity argument that Rachel had acted to protect not only her daughter, but future victims. The case split public opinion. Supporters saw Rachel as a mother pushed beyond her breaking point, forced to take action when the system failed to protect her child. Critics argued that vigilante justice, no matter how sympathetic the circumstances, could not be tolerated in a civilized society. Emma testified on her mother's behalf, finally telling her story publicly despite the humiliation and trauma. The prosecution questioned why she hadn't reported the abuse earlier, but the defense presented extensive evidence of Michael's manipulation and threats. The trial revealed darker truths about Michael's past. Investigators found evidence linking him to at least 3 other cases of suspected abuse, all involving young women and families, where he'd worked as a paralegal or volunteer. None had ever been reported, likely due to his sophisticated system of blackmail and intimidation. Dr. Brennan, Emma's former pediatrician, testified that he'd suspected abuse during Emma's teenage years, but couldn't prove it. Hospital records showed that Emma had visited the emergency room twice for injuries that were likely abuse-related, but she'd claimed they were accidents. The revelation that shook the courtroom came from an unexpected source. Detective Angela Rodriguez, who had investigated Michael's death, discovered that he'd been planning to flee the country. Hidden bank accounts contained over $250,000 in cash, and Michael had applied for a passport under an assumed name just weeks before his death. More disturbing still, police found evidence that Michael had been communicating with a network of sexual predators, sharing tactics, and even considering trading victims. Emma hadn't been his only target. She was simply the one he'd had the longest access to. But the most shocking twist came when investigators analyzed Michael's communications more deeply. They discovered that Dr. Brennan, Emma's longtime pediatrician, had been providing Michael with information about his patients' families. The doctor, facing bankruptcy due to gambling debts, had been selling private medical information to Michael's network in exchange for cash payments. Brennan had identified Emma as a vulnerable target during her routine checkups, noting her father's death and her mother's demanding work schedule. He'd even prescribed unnecessary medications to Emma during her teenage years, drugs that Michael had used to sedate her during early assaults. The discovery led to a massive investigation that uncovered a network of predators operating throughout the state. Dr. Brennan was arrested on charges of sexual exploitation, conspiracy, and violating patient privacy. Several other professionals, including a family court judge, 2 social workers, and a high school counselor, were also implicated. 2 months after Rachel began serving her sentence, DNA evidence from Michael's personal effects was matched to an unsolved case from 16 years earlier. A teenage girl named Ashley Morgan had been found dead in a hotel room, apparently from a drug overdose. At the time, police had suspected foul play, but couldn't prove it. New forensic techniques had recovered Michael's DNA from evidence that had been too degraded to test previously. Further investigation revealed that Ashley had been one of Michael's first victims, before he'd perfected his system of blackmail and control. Ashley's parents, who had spent 16 years believing their daughter had died from a drug addiction, finally learned the truth. Their daughter had been murdered by a predator who had then spent the next decade and a half perfecting his techniques for avoiding detection. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict that surprised many legal experts: guilty of voluntary manslaughter rather than murder, with a recommendation for the minimum sentence due to extraordinary circumstances. Judge Helen Walker, a mother herself, sentenced Rachel to 7 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 3.5 years. In her statement, she acknowledged the impossible situation Rachel had faced while maintaining that the law could not sanction private justice. Rachel served only 2 years of her sentence before being granted early parole, largely due to the revelation of the conspiracy and her exemplary behavior in prison. She had spent her time in custody, earning a degree in criminal justice, and working with other inmates who had been victims of abuse. Her release made national headlines. Supporters gathered outside the prison, holding signs that read, "Justice for Rachel" and "Mothers protect their children." Critics remained, arguing that her early release sent the wrong message about vigilante justice. Emma was waiting for her mother at the prison gates, along with dozens of other survivors who had been helped by the Thompson Foundation, an organization Emma had established to provide support for families affected by sexual abuse and institutional betrayal. The reunion between mother and daughter was emotional. Both had changed dramatically during their time apart. "I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to protect you from the beginning," Rachel said as they embraced. "You were protecting everyone you could," Emma replied. "You just didn't know I needed protection too." Rachel emerged from prison to find that the case had sparked nationwide reforms in how institutions handle reports of sexual abuse. Several states had passed Rachel's laws, legislation requiring mandatory cross-reporting between agencies when abuse is suspected, and creating oversight boards with survivor representation. 5 years after Michael Harrison's death, Rachel Thompson stood before a congressional subcommittee investigating institutional failures in child protection. She was there not as a criminal, but as an expert witness whose tragic experience had helped expose systematic vulnerabilities. Michael Harrison wasn't just one predator, she testified. He was the product of a system that allowed monsters to hide in plain sight, protected by our trust in institutions and our reluctance to believe that people in positions of authority could be complicit in such evil. Emma sat in the gallery, now married and working as a victim's advocate. The fertility treatments she'd undergone had been successful, and she was expecting her first child, a daughter she planned to name Rachel. The case had changed both women in profound ways. Rachel had lost her nursing career, but found a new calling in criminal justice reform. Emma had lost her ability to trust easily, but gained a powerful voice for other survivors. Michael's network had been completely dismantled. 14 conspirators had been convicted and sentenced to substantial prison terms. Dr. Brennan had died in prison, reportedly from suicide, though some suspected he'd been killed by other inmates who learned of his crimes against children. The house where the shooting occurred had been sold, with the proceeds going to victim support organizations. Rachel and Emma lived together in a small apartment across town, rebuilding their relationship and learning to trust again. Neither woman claimed to be proud of how their story had unfolded. Violence, even justified violence, left scars that never fully healed. But they found meaning in the knowledge that their sacrifice had protected others and exposed a system of evil that might otherwise have continued unchecked. On quiet evenings, when the media attention died down and the activists went home, Rachel would sometimes wonder if she could have found another way. But then she would look at her daughter, scarred but surviving, broken but healing, and know that she had done the only thing a mother could do. She had protected her child, even when it cost her everything. The story of Rachel and Emma Thompson became a cautionary tale about the failures of institutions and the lengths to which love will go when all other options have been exhausted. It raised uncomfortable questions about justice, revenge, and the price of protecting the innocent in a world where evil often wears the mask of respectability. But perhaps most importantly, it served as a reminder that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like helpful neighbors, trusted professionals, and devoted stepfathers. And sometimes the only thing standing between them and their victims is a mother's love and a mother's rage, backed by a mother's willingness to sacrifice everything for her child's safety. In the end, Michael Harrison's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating the law or the system. It was underestimating the fierce, protective love of a mother who had finally learned the truth. If this story moved you or made you think, please give it a like and subscribe for more true crime stories that explore the complex intersections of justice, family, and the lengths people go to protect those they love. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light.